According to the Office for National Statistics, within the next generation, the UK could well overtake Germany as the country with the highest population in Europe. The population in the UK as of June last year was 64.6 million people, but that's estimated to grow by almost 10 million to just over 74 million during the next 25 years. That's like adding the entire populations of Birmingham and London on top. Just over half of the population increase is expected to come from net migration. That's the difference between people leaving and people arriving here from other countries. But we're also living longer. At the moment, 1 in 21 people is aged 80 or over. But by 2039, that's expected to be 1 in 12. What does this all mean for Britain, then? With me is Simon Ross, who's Chief Executive of the charity Population Matters, and alongside him is Atul Hatwal from Migration Matters. It's an important matter, clearly, gentlemen. Simon, first, how important is this? How will it impact us?
I think it's a real issue because population affects everything, whether you want a house, going to school in the morning, trying to get your education, going to get healthcare. More and more people put more and more pressure on services in the environment. So it's something we have to plan for and actually something we have to try and affect as well.
Just briefly, Atul, it wasn't always thus, was it? A bit of a history lesson, because in the late 70s and early 80s, our population growth flatlined pretty much.
Indeed, and we had the problem then that Germany has now, which is its population was getting smaller, people were getting older, fewer workers to pay for this ageing population. And Germany faces the same problem that Chinese have woken up to, which is unless you have more workers, you can't pay for the welfare state and the way of life you lead.
And people look at immigration into Germany at the moment and they think, hang on, they're taking hundreds of thousands, perhaps even a million and a half immigrants from the likes of Syria. Are they going to have a problem after all? And are we really going to catch them up by the middle of the century?
Well, I think there's two dimensions to that. When you say that will there be a problem, there's obviously major change needs to be managed sensitively. But Germany's population is declining, and they have they're a rich country with long life. That's a real challenge if you want to maintain things like an NHS, which is funded, social security. If you want to maintain the basic principles of our way of life.
Do you think we can maintain those, Simon?
I mean, that's really a short-term fix. If you bring in more people, they're going to get old, they're going to need help. And we're seeing today birds becoming extinct in Britain because of, urbanisation and so on. We've got 30,000 people a year dying from air pollution. We've got all these problems with energy, utilities. It is putting a huge pressure on the environment. We all know about climate change.
I take issue with that, though, Simon, because the UK National Ecosystem Assessment, which was done by the government a couple of years ago, found that 93% of this country is countryside. Now, to maintain our way of life, to have enough workers to pay for things, and to make sure we have things like the NHS in 30, 40, 50 years, surely 1% of that 93% can be sacrificed?
It depends which part of the country you're talking about, of course. If we dig down into population density, so, for example, China, 1.4 billion people, works out at roughly 145 people per square kilometre. It's pretty much the same in Wales and in Northern Ireland. Half as empty, in fact, in Scotland. You've got the Highlands, of course. In England, there are more than 400 people per kilometre. That's where the problem lies, in the urbanised areas of the southeast, the northwest and the northeast.
Well, that's it. England's already the most densely populated place in Europe. We've already grown by 10 million over the last 25 years. So another 10 million on top of that. We need the agricultural land to eat for food.
It's like having new cities the size of London and Birmingham added on already.
Well, there are 2 points there. One, within England, population density varies enormously. So in the northeast, it's really, really very, very different to the southeast. In England, according to the government's figures, again, 9 in 10 hectares is not urbanised. It's countryside. And again, it comes back to that basic principle of the way of life. You need people to work to pay for things.
OK. Atul, brief answer. Will we cope?
Yes, absolutely.
Simon?
I think things are going to get worse. That's in reality.
OK. Thank you both very much indeed for your varying views.